Most folks out in the suburbs hear the name and immediately picture a fragile, squeaking furball trapped inside a plastic cage in a children's bedroom. They call it a guinea pig, but step onto a working farm, walk the aisles of a high-stakes exhibition hall, or sit down with a seasoned producer, and you'll hear a different name entirely. Out here, where feed costs and meat yields dictate survival, we respect this animal as a CAVY. This cultural split hides a deep dilemma for the modern homesteader. On one side, society pushes the narrative of a delicate pet that needs constant pampering. On the other side, astute backyard farmers have quietly tapped into an ancestral powerhouse. They realize they're looking at the fastest-growing, most cold-hardy, space-efficient meat and fertilizer engine available today. So what is the reality on the ground? Are you raising a glass-case curiosity? Or are you ready to fire up the biological engine for absolute self-sufficiency? Let's begin. To operate this engine at peak capacity, we've got to strip away the suburban myths that blind novice breeders. Let's get the taxonomy straight right out of the gate. Despite the confusing colloquial names scattered across the continent, this animal doesn't share a single ounce of functional anatomy with domestic meat rabbits, and has absolutely no genetic ties to commercial swine. Its true lineage is rooted in raw survival. We're looking at a wild, untamed heritage forged thousands of years ago on the freezing, unforgiving slopes of the Andes Mountains. This compact herbivore is a direct biological cousin to the imposing capybara, the heaviest rodent on the planet, and the elusive wild vizcacha. Understanding this bloodline changes everything about how you manage your herd. It explains the intense, instinctual flocking behavior and the rigid social hierarchy you witness the second you drop a group of them into a spacious floor run. They inherited an oversized, hyperactive digestive tract designed to break down coarse, low-quality fibrous weeds in barren terrains where traditional livestock simply freeze or starve to death. Their biological powerhouse is the cecum. This massive internal fermentation vat takes up a huge portion of their abdominal cavity. It harbors specialized bacterial colonies that strip every drop of raw energy from dry forage. This internal furnace generates a constant core temperature, allowing their ancestors to survive punishing winds and freezing mountain nights. They adapted to huddle in tight-knit colonies, conserving body heat and shielding each other from predators. Thousands of years of selective breeding compressed all that rugged resilience into a compact frame suited for modern backyard hutches. When you watch a properly managed breeding colony, you immediately recognize the wild capybara instincts taking over. A dominant boar secures the perimeter, the breeding sows synchronize their biological cycles, and the entire unit moves with purpose. You stop treating them like fragile indoor pets and start managing them with the strict respect demanded by a high-capacity grazing herd. Supplying constant, long-stem roughage isn't just a casual feeding suggestion. It's the absolute fuel required to keep that internal fermentation vat running. That ancestral genetic base eventually served as a blank canvas for one of the most remarkable breeding achievements in modern agriculture. For decades, the North American homesteader settled for standard breeds that, even on premium feed, struggled to hit 20 ounces of live weight. They provided a decent protein source for the table, but lacked the massive frame needed to justify a large-scale commercial operation. That limitation vanished when agricultural research facilities took control of the genetics and initiated a ruthless selection process. By isolating the absolute largest specimens with the highest feed conversion rates, scientists sculpted what the homesteading community now calls the Peru Line CAVY giant. Laying your hands on a purebred boar from this heavy-duty genetic pool demands instant respect. We're talking about a true meat tank that shattered the physical boundaries of its species. These imposing males hit colossal adult weights ranging from 5.5 to over 6.5 pounds. The sows, engineered by nature to carry the anatomical burden of massive litters, stabilize right around 4 to 4.8 pounds. When you run your hands over the spine of a Peru Line giant, you feel a solid block of dense, deep muscle. They feature a remarkably broad loin, a deep chest cavity, and heavy bone structures capable of supporting that massive frame without sacrificing agility in the pen. Achieving this oversized phenotype required a fundamental shift in their digestive capacity. These animals process daily forage with astonishing speed, translating raw plant matter into heavy muscle in record time. Their appetite is relentless, keeping their metabolic rate running hot to sustain that explosive daily weight gain. For the astute homesteader investing in this heavy-duty bloodline, the practical impact is undeniable. A single giant yields the same amount of premium meat on the butcher block as 3 traditional animals. It's a crude reality of farm math that optimizes your cage space, cuts your daily cleaning chores down, and maximizes the return on every pound of hay you throw into the feeder. Beyond sheer size, The external appearance of your herd provides a perfect blueprint of their thermal adaptability. The American CAVY Breeders Association recognizes a strict catalog of coat varieties, but out in the mud and dirt, these phenotypes represent crucial survival suits. We categorize 4 primary coat textures, and each one dictates exactly which climate zone your farm can dominate. The short hair or smooth variety features a tight, sleek coat that lays perfectly flat against the skin. This acts as an aerodynamic, quick-drying shield ideal for high humidity areas, allowing the animal to dump excess body heat efficiently. The Abyssinian variety, characterized by rough, swirling rosettes, breaks up direct drafts and freezing winds, creating insulating air pockets right above the epidermis. Then you have the Peruvian, boasting a spectacular long flowing coat that drapes heavily over the body. This specific texture requires meticulous sanitary management in wire-bottom cages because dragging that long hair across damp ground invites parasite loads almost instantly. Yet in exchange for that extra labor, it delivers unparalleled thermal protection in homesteads dominated by harsh winter freezes. Finally, the Rex or Teddy variety presents a dense, crimped coat that functions exactly like a natural wool barrier, trapping the animal's radiant heat close to the skin. But texture isn't the whole story. Coat color plays a deep biological role that many novice breeders ignore when selecting their foundation stock. Pigmentation is directly tied to skin resilience and solar tolerance. Individuals sporting dark coats, intense reds, or heavy roans carry high concentrations of melanin. This melanin physically strengthens the keratin structure within each hair shaft, making it highly resistant to shedding and environmental wear. These dark-coated animals absorb morning solar radiation with extreme efficiency, raising their core temperature fast after a freezing night. In sharp contrast, albino strains or heavy white-crested varieties face a biological handicap on outdoor pasture. Their depigmented skin leaves them highly vulnerable to sunburns and dermatitis when exposed to direct daylight. Inside a controlled barn, that lack of pigment isn't a liability. In fact, a pure white herd allows the stockman to perform rapid visual inspections, spotting minor injuries or parasites in seconds. The seasoned producer reads these traits perfectly, keeping heavy-coated animals out of deep southern swamps where heat stress shuts down feed intake. Now we arrive at the biological engine that turns this South American rodent into the undisputed king of homestead livestock rotation, its high-frequency reproductive cycle. In the wider world of grazing mammals, you normally wait months just to see the first signs of pregnancy. Here, the laws of nature operate on an entirely different timeline. The sows reach sexual maturity with a speed that defies logic, displaying their first estrus cycle between 6 and 8 weeks of age. Boars, driven by an early surge of testosterone, are fully capable of breeding by their 3rd month on the ground. This accelerated physical development allows you to structure a rapid generational turnover in your breeding program, slashing the time it takes to see tangible results in your meat freezer. They deliver an average litter of 3 to 5 stout pups, but these aren't blind, helpless newborns. They're highly precocial. They drop onto the bedding, fully furred, with their eyes open and a full set of teeth, ready to sprint around the pen and chew solid hay within hours of birth. However, the true productive force of the CAVY doesn't lie simply in the size of the litter, but in the relentless speed of the turnaround. The maternal line holds a staggering physiological advantage known among veteran breeders as the post-partum estrus. Just hours after pushing out the last pup and passing the placentas, the sow's reproductive tract undergoes a lightning-fast anatomical reset. Her ovaries release fresh follicles, perfectly primed for immediate conception. If a vigorous boar is sharing the breeding pen, a brand new gestation cycle sparks into existence that very same afternoon. This overlapping biological cycle means the sow is actively developing a new litter inside her uterus, while simultaneously producing heavy volumes of milk for the pups running around the floor. This intense physiological overlap makes it entirely possible to achieve up to 5 complete farrowing cycles in a single year. You effectively transform a few square feet of barn space into an inexhaustible factory of high-grade protein. Sustaining that kind of bodily output isn't a casual hobby. The drain on a sow's calcium, phosphorus, and raw caloric energy when she gestates and lactates in parallel is immense. If you fail to supply a dense mineral supplement and high-protein green forage, her skeletal frame will collapse from severe pelvic fractures. Managing this aggressive rotation requires you to pull exhausted sows away from the boar, forcing a mandatory resting period. You have to protect the anatomical chassis that upholds your entire farm system. Sustaining the heavy production rhythm of these biological powerhouses demands a flawless infrastructure setup on your homestead. The exact physical design of their living quarters dictates the ultimate success or the catastrophic failure of your entire operation. regardless of whether you raise them for heavy table meat or elite exhibition lines. Out in the field, seasoned producers argue daily over two dominant architectural models. You've got the large outdoor ground colony pens, and you've got the stacked multi-tier wire hutch systems. Building ground pens out of rough-cut timber keeps your initial startup costs low while mimicking the natural roaming behavior of the species. This floor-based setup allows the herd to maneuver across deep, heavy bedding layers of compressed pine shavings or dry wheat straw. It feels natural, but this layout demands exhausting, back-breaking daily maintenance from the farmer. You've got to stay ahead of the dampness. If you let that heavy bedding pack down and trap moisture, you create a rapid breeding ground for heavy bacterial loads that'll destroy the herd from the ground up. On the flip side of the barn, elevated wire battery hutches maximize the vertical footprint of your outbuildings. This raised confinement system keeps the breeding groups isolated from soil-borne pathogens and damp earth. It utilizes gravity to let the heavy waste drop through the hardware cloth, cutting your daily scraping chores in half. The critical secret to making either of these systems work lies in the precise square footage you allocate to each breeding group. A solid benchmark requires a minimum of 8 square feet for a standard harem to prevent overcrowding. Cramming these heavy-bodied animals into tight quarters acts as a direct trigger for massive herd stress. Cramped pens shut down their rapid muscle growth and provoke violent territorial clashes over feed bowls. Furthermore, forcing a heavy Peru Line giant to stand on bare, poor wire flooring without resting boards guarantees a brutal case of bumblefoot. You've got to provide enough floor space so every pregnant sow has a secure, quiet corner to nest, ensuring her pups drop unharmed without getting crushed by the rest of the frantic herd. Understanding the physical architecture of the hutch is just the foundation. Mastering the raw psychology and the rigid social hierarchy of the colony guarantees the actual survival of your breeding program. The moment you introduce a group of these animals into a fresh pen, you witness the immediate formation of a strict, primitive social structure. A single, heavy-shouldered dominant boar steps up to claim the alpha role. He uses force to claim the space. This alpha boar patrols the perimeter without rest, marking every wooden post and feeder with heavy scent secretions from his perianal glands to establish his absolute domain. He acts as the silent watchman of the colony, monitoring the movement of the sows and enforcing order through a complex acoustic radar system. You'll hear an entire spectrum of vocalizations echoing through the barn. High-pitched weaking announces the arrival of fresh hay, acting as a dinner bell for the colony. When the harmony of the group breaks, the physical body language shifts in a fraction of a second. Deep, vibrating purring and loud defensive teeth chattering serve as high-intensity acoustic warnings. If a younger male attempts to challenge the established authority of the alpha, he faces relentless, aggressive pursuit until he yields. This dominance drive brings us to an unshakable golden rule of backyard livestock management that you must never break. Never, under any circumstances, house 2 adult breeding boars in the same enclosure when active sows are present. The raw biological drive for breeding rights overwrites their natural flocking instinct. It sparks vicious, bloody combat. They'll tear into each other with heavy incisors, causing deep puncture wounds, severe infections, or sudden death from acute shock. To build an efficient production unit, you group one vigorous boar with a harem of 5 to 7 well-built sows, rotating the male each year to maintain hybrid vigor. The engine that drives this explosive muscle growth and endless fertility sits inside a specialized digestive tract. We're dealing with a strict grazing herbivore packing a hyperactive cecum built to pull raw energy out of dense cellulose. Yet this perfect biological machine carries a massive evolutionary vulnerability. Just like humans, they lack the genetic ability to synthesize vitamin C in their liver. They depend on a daily oral intake of ascorbic acid to keep their bodily systems functioning. If a novice farmer ignores this biological reality and feeds nothing but dry commercial grains, the entire herd will crash into severe scurvy within weeks. Their joints swell, their dense coats lose all protective shine, their bone collagen breaks down, and the heavy giants end up paralyzed on the hutch floor. To prevent this structural collapse, delivering fresh green forage remains an absolute daily requirement. You've got to build their diet plan around an 80% foundation of voluminous roughage. Heavy rations of Timothy hay, green orchard grass, thick alfalfa, and fresh backyard weeds meet their intense vitamin demands and keep that internal gut flora churning. The moisture trapped inside fresh green stems hydrates the animal from the inside out. Meanwhile, the tough, long fibers force continuous grinding of their heavy incisors. Those front teeth grow without stopping from birth to death, and the tough hay grinds them down, preventing lethal jaw malformations. While roughage maintains health, the explosive growth of the heavy giant lines demands a high-octane fuel source. That's where compressed, high-density alfalfa pellets enter the feeding trough. The pellets bump up the crude protein levels, accelerating the time it takes to push a weaned pup to harvest weight. But you have to maintain that strict 80-20 balance. Tipping the scales and dumping too much rich, wet spring grass into the feeder alongside heavy pellets overloads their system. It sparks rapid intestinal gas buildup, leading to lethal bloat known as tympanism that'll wipe out an entire pen before morning. Let's break down the raw financial numbers and the hard realities of running this setup on a modern family farm. Starting a dedicated breeding operation requires a very manageable initial capital output compared to heavy cattle or swine. You can frame out the basic infrastructure using local rough-cut timber and standard half-inch hardware cloth. Your daily operating costs hit rock bottom if you possess enough pasture space to harvest your own wild forage and cure your own winter hay. The true return on investment explodes when you integrate the heavy giant genetics into your pens. Securing a foundation nucleus of purebred breeding stock commands a premium price tag up front, but it injects immediate horsepower into your farm. By crossing a massive giant boar over standard hardy sows, the offspring inherit the genetic blueprint for rapid, explosive muscle gain. This early metabolic maturity allows you to achieve a solid harvest cycle in just 3 months from birth to the butchering block, pushing meat weights up to 6 pounds. The culinary market is searching for this premium, gourmet meat protein. It delivers a staggering 20% lean, highly digestible protein profile with low saturated fat levels. It stands as a vital resource for consumers demanding high-performance nutrition. However, nature punishes poor farm management with zero mercy. This specific livestock model carries severe operational risks that amateur farmers tend to underestimate. Their extreme physical sensitivity to sudden climate shifts remains a constant threat. A single blast of freezing draft wind ripping through an unsealed barn door triggers massive outbreaks of acute pneumonia. The second major threat comes from the microscopic level. Salmonella remains a relentless bacterial enemy that'll decimate entire barns if your daily hygiene protocols slip. Dirty waterers, damp bedding, and poor airflow invite these lethal pathogens straight into your nesting boxes, destroying months of hard labor and heavy feed investments in a matter of days. The brilliance of this agricultural model stretches far beyond the meat freezer. The actual life cycle of the homestead closes when you learn to harness the heavy byproducts dropping through the wire floors. We're talking about the methodical collection of the manure, a constant, heavy resource that experienced growers treat as absolute organic gold. The waste produced by these compact herbivores outclasses raw chicken litter or heavy cow dung in the garden. Because their digestive tract extracts nutrients with such intense friction and efficiency, the final waste drops as dry, compact pellets. As long as you manage the moisture levels under the hutches, this waste emits almost zero ammonia odor. It piles up clean, allowing you to rake it out without firing up heavy tractors or breaking your back with a heavy pitchfork. This natural hutch fertilizer packs heavy, balanced concentrations of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Unlike raw poultry litter that burns young plant roots to a crisp due to high acid levels, this cold manure can go straight into your garden beds. It feeds the soil without the mandatory aging process. Still, the astute homesteader pushes the yield even further by processing this waste through a dedicated vermicomposting system. You mix the raw droppings with the wasted hay pulled from the feeders to build the ultimate decomposition bedding. Introducing heavy colonies of red wigglers into this mix accelerates the breakdown of the raw organic matter. The worms chew through the dense waste and transform it into premium humus. This dark, odorless worm-casting fertilizer serves as the ultimate biological fuel to nourish your own pasture grasses. You spread it over the same timothy and alfalfa fields that'll feed the next generation of breeding stock inside your barn. You achieve absolute circular independence. Today's waste guarantees tomorrow's heavy forage harvest. It cuts the expensive chemical fertilizer out of your operating budget. It fortifies the long-term economy of your homestead, turning a simple cleaning chore into an inexhaustible, sustainable fertility engine that keeps your entire farm running strong year after year. This incredible species shatters the modern illusion of a fragile farm animal. Mastering their biological engine hands you the keys to a rapid, space-saving meat powerhouse capable of securing your family's protein independence. Let me know down in the comments which of these housing options makes the most sense for your setup. If you got some value out of this breakdown, hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up so we can keep bringing you practical homesteading advice. To your success, fellow breeder. Until next time.